to submit any questions via the chat box. Ashok Adikopola will be monitoring the chat, and we will address your questions at the end of the show if time permits. Please also mute your mics if they are not already muted. And guests too, if you can mute your mics when you're not speaking, that would be helpful. So let's begin. First off, Colonie, as many of you might know, is a large and fairly populous suburb of Albany, New York. It consists of many hamlets and has historic roots in the region's Dutch American heritage. So we're an Asian American media network, and many of our viewers are recent immigrants. So with that in mind, I was wondering if each of you could describe Colonie's governance structure and the various other jurisdictional units that fall within it. Perhaps Supervisor Mahan, could you begin?
Yes, well, our government is made up of a supervisor and 6 town board members, often referred to as town councilmen, councilwomen. And we, as a town government, we have many of our laws are local laws that we put in place, and everything that we do revolves around developing resolutions, and the resolutions go before our town board, and as a whole, we vote on those resolutions. That's how we keep everything going in town. And we have 2 other municipalities within the town of Colonie. We have 2 villages, the village of Colonie and the village of Menands. And they both have their own form of government. They have mayors and trustees that run their government, although they are within town government within our jurisdiction as well. And we also work very closely with the Albany County and with New York State government. And in many cases, their laws will supersede our town laws. And we hold meetings every 2 weeks. We hold town board meetings. And then within our town government, we also have various boards that handle specific departments in the town. Say, for example, for planning, we have a planning board made up of members, and we have a zoning board, and keep going down the road there. We cover every area, but we are elected officials as town board members and as supervisor. My term is 2 years. The town board is 4 years. And we also have an elected town clerk, an elected receiver of taxes, and we have 3 elected judges.
Wow, that sounds like a really interesting and complex structure, quite different from Greenfield, where I happen to live.
Yes.
Councilwoman, is there anything that you'd like to add to that to kind of that conversation?
I mean, that was a pretty comprehensive overview, so I don't have too much to add. But it is interesting to be a part of. We're obviously one of the largest towns in the upstate area, so it's a lot to manage and run, and we work very hard to keep everything together within the structure that we have.
Excellent. So my next question actually has to do with the growth in the immigrant population. So Colonie, like many capital region towns, has been experiencing quite a bit of growth in its immigrant population, and Asian Americans now are the largest non-white, non-Hispanic community in Colonie, as I discovered this morning while doing some research, and are actually estimated to make up about 8,000 of the town's 84,000 residents. And so I was wondering if we could talk a bit about this diversity and how it's affecting Colonie. I thought maybe Councilwoman Von Dolan, you could start, because I know you grew up in Colonie and have, spent quite a bit of your life there, and maybe you could just talk a bit about the changes that you've seen.
Yeah, it's actually pretty amazing. We are very proud of the diversity within our town. I'm actually excited to see some of the results in the census from this year, because I think it'll reveal that the number that you're referencing has gone up quite a bit. There are a lot of Asian American immigrants that are buying houses in the new developments within our town. They are working in very very interesting industry jobs. And I think it's important to have the diversity across the town. We welcome the immigrants that are coming here. I also personally have a history of the last few years working with immigrants in my previous job. And it's something that's very important to me because I think that as a town, it makes us richer, it makes us more diverse, it makes us more inclusive. And I think there's a lot of things that we can learn from each other from our different cultures.
Yeah, definitely. I'm really interested in seeing the census results too. And I'm actually really curious about Asian American is such a huge term. I teach Asian American history, and it's like the first thing we do is we say, what does this term actually mean? And so I'm curious, Supervisor, if you could talk a little bit about maybe different Asian nationalities, ethnicities that you're seeing in Colony.
Well, we are definitely a very diverse community here in Colony, and I think just about every culture is represented. And as a former educator in North Colony schools, I was there for 27 years, and I watched the population of the town and the communities change as far as new people coming from other countries to our school districts, and so our children began to grow together and share each other's cultures and languages. We saw a lot of that in the school district with accommodating Asian immigrants that came to our school districts with English as a second language. So that's something that the children get adjusted to so quickly. It's amazing. And what they have to do to assimilate to the American culture is it's tremendous, and yet they just fall into it and go with the flow so easily and adapt to the language and the type of testing that we do, and really education. What I've noticed with the various groups from, again, all different cultures, they education is definitely seen as a privilege and as something that is very, very valued. And I see that as a very positive for all of our students, because it's good for students to see that in each other. And also, it's that learning from each and sharing the different cultures, whether it be through through language, through foods, through music, through the arts, whatever it may be. But I couldn't name them all because we are such a diverse population here in the town of Colonie, which makes us, as Melissa said, richer, and and everyone adds something to our community and makes it the great community that it is. But it's my grandparents were immigrants here. They came from Italy, and we have just seen it again in all populations. People love living in Colonie, and Colonie is a very welcoming community. But we truly appreciate the values and the qualities that we learn from each other from the various cultures. And we're just one big, huge community changing all the time.
Yeah, changes the constant norm.
Mhm.
And speaking of that change, we're obviously in the midst of some unprecedented change right now
Yes.
as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to affect how we interact with each other. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about the schools. Colony has a lot of schools in it, which means that there's a lot of students at home right now,
Yes.
completing their year of school, grappling with various changes, missing out on concerts, performances, graduations, sporting events, you name it. And I was wondering if you could actually address that a little bit and just talk about how that's impacted the community and the spirit of the community, and what kind of creative solutions you've seen, if any, in kind of addressing this kind of big change, this problem that we're facing right now.
Well, I've been working with our school districts closely, and we are continually updated on everything that's going on. One thing that's resulted from the pandemic is, I think, it's brought the community, the educational community, the students, as well as just the community as a whole, everyone much closer. It has forced us to slow our lives down and to take a look at what our real priorities are. And the students have it's varying. The effects are varying. There are emotional effects. For some people, it creates a higher level of anxiety. Most kids are very resilient. As I'm sure, as an educator yourself, you've seen that as kids grow and develop, they adapt very easily. And I think the emotional part of this comes from uh, the milestones that they've met, especially as seniors graduating, as elementary schools going on to the junior high students going on to the high school. As I say, as a member of the staff in North Colony, those were things that we had a lot of planning and preparation to help the students in that transition from one level to the next. So that piece is missing. And so I know the school districts are trying their best to keep the community, the educational community, intact to the best of their ability. So the students know that they are cared about, they are loved, and we're there for them. Parents have become the educators in their homes. Every child has their own little personalities. They have different learning styles, different attention abilities to focus to the task at hand. They're all different, and parents are seeing how difficult it is to be there and guide their children through technology with their classroom teachers for educational purposes. And then on the other side, the teachers, they can't be there with their students, which is a big change for them. And also, it's emotional because they want to be there with them and they want them all to continue to grow and learn. And so it is challenging, but that connection is crucial. It's critical for the students to keep that connection with their teachers. And as a community, we're trying uh, to foster some sense of connection through working with our local volunteer fire departments, our police officers, our community police officers are doing things where, we've gone through different neighborhoods and we've tried to celebrate some milestones with children throughout the town. And I think one of the biggest things, as adults, we're wondering, how is this going to be as we move forward for our kids? What's going to happen in the fall? What's going to happen in the future? I think we're going to be making a lot of changes so that when we have to face these situations again, we will be better equipped to meet those challenges.
Absolutely. It seems like this is an incredible learning experience for everybody. And so, Councilwoman Von Dahlen, one of the things I was curious about was, it was really interesting. I'm not a parent, and so I'm
Neither
looking
am
at,
I.
yeah. So both of us are looking at this maybe from a different perspective. To me, when I first, was seeing reports about, schools closing and everything, I thought, wow, the kids must be really happy because they're going to get this like large number of snow days right in the springtime. But then I started to see how distressing it was and how much they really wanted to go back to school and how much they missed their teachers. And that was all very surprising to me.
Mhm.
And I was wondering, from your perspective, what is, the role of school in a community's life? Maybe you could just kind of speak to that for a few minutes.
I mean, the school, especially within our community, we have some phenomenal school districts. And I think I went through North Colony my whole life. But I've actually been really impressed by the way all of the school districts within our community have really resorted to social media and have used that as a tool to be able to spread positivity and engage everyone within the school community. A lot of the districts and the teachers within the districts are reading stories daily and providing some sort of structure in that sense so that there's like, an 11 a.m. story time with something. And there's other things that are going on. I also was personally part of one of the PE challenges. They were trying to get students to walk about 10,000 steps a day, and you had to send in your pictures and your screenshots. So I joined in on that because I think it's good for anyone. But it's really impressive to see the structure that they provide in the community. For some students, it's an outlet when they get involved with the sports and the extracurricular activities, but I think they're a crucial part of the community in Colonie. And it is missed, that personal connection is missed, but they're really adapting to the way to replicate that from a remote setting, and it's pretty incredible to watch.
Yeah, and it's evolving. We've been in this now for 2 months, though. The way it kind of felt in March is probably quite different from the way it feels in May. But I love that 11 a.m. story time. That's such a cool idea and a very good idea. Um, what about specific impacts on Colony? Supervisor Mahan, as the capital region begins its reopening, what are you planning to do to help support this? So, like, what kind of messages do you want to impart regarding such practices as social distancing? And how do you want to help ease fears about visiting businesses going into public places once again?
Well, I think it's important to have some consistency between the messages that are out there daily. Our businesses, when they reopen, certainly will be following guidelines that are provided by we're conversing every day between state government, county government, and all of our local leaders together. We're following the CDC guidelines. We're following the uh, the plan that the governor has put in place, and Albany County Executive Dan McCoy, what he has put in place with his people and his medical staff. So we are basically all on the same page when it comes to the protective personal protective equipment, when it comes to the guidelines as to social distancing, how we set that up in our offices, in our buildings, for when so it's safe for people to work. It's going to be the same thing, I would assume, as the reopening happens. When we get to that point, I think everything will be phased in and gradually improve if everything stays stable. And so I think we're going to see a number of things. I think we're going to see some people that are going to just go right out and just be glad that, oh, this is over and we can do what we want to do now. There are others that are going to follow the guidelines and be safe and just try to make this all work. And there are going to be others that emotionally it has had an effect on them differently, where it's going to take time for them to adjust back into society and into our community. But I know that it's very important for our economy, for the businesses to open. So, our message is to everyone is that we are trying to be safe so we can keep our community safe, our residents, our business leaders, our families, so that we can keep everyone safe and healthy. And if we can get the public to follow the same guidelines and to take this very seriously and to be patient and hopeful, we can get through this. I do think that we still have a ways to go, and I do think that the impacts on the town as a government, those impacts will affect residents as well and businesses. We are prioritizing, just our families, as families are prioritizing and our educational institutions are prioritizing. We are working on the most critical, essential needs for our residents: public safety, health and safety. We have certain maintenance from our Department of Public Works that we have to make sure is done to the best of our ability. And we need safe water. We need safe wastewater systems, things like that are priorities. There are some things that our people are going to have to adjust to, and it's going to take longer for some things than others. We're making sacrifices every day. And our people that are going to be reopening the businesses, they're faced with the same thing. Each individual business is faced with the same thing that we're facing as a town government on a smaller scale. And they want to protect their employees. They want to protect the visitors to their businesses. And we want to do the same thing in town government. So the more that we can stay on the same page and assist each other to get through this crisis, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And I was just thinking about how, our towns in the region are so tightly packed against each other. Sometimes if you're driving, you're going from, you're in Troy one minute, then you're in another town, and and it will be really interesting to see how the jurisdictions are able to coordinate and get on that same page that you describe. So, Councilwoman Von Dolan, to what extent have you felt yourself to be on the front line of battling this pandemic? And I'm wondering how the pandemic has actually impacted your life over the past 2 months, and what messages from that perspective you'd like to communicate to your constituents and to others.
Sure. So, I mean, I think it's safe to say that when I ran a couple of years ago for office, I wasn't expecting to be in this position during a global pandemic. But I think it's been a big challenge. But like any leader must, you have to rise to the occasion, and you have to send out a message of positivity. You have to keep people connected and together, especially when we're being forced to be physically separate. And we have a great system in place under the leadership of Supervisor Mahan. We're in constant communication with her, delivering all of the different news and items that we have to abide by, things to look out for. So we have a very good communication within our town government. But in addition to that, I always try to pride myself on being solution oriented. Sometimes you can feel helpless, and it's easy to just hide behind a computer and commiserate with others. But I think during times like these, you really have to celebrate every possible victory that you can. So as a result, I decided to create a Facebook group. It's called Proud to be Colonie. Anyone can join it. And I've been sharing a lot of the different amazing things that are still happening within the town. Some of the different birthday parades have been shared in that group. When you have the police and the fire departments joining in, I've shared a lot of the different donations of PPE that we received from various organizations within the community. There's a company in the town of Colonie that was given authorization to manufacture ventilators, and we wanted to recognize them. So I think it's really important that you have to still create a sense of community and togetherness, especially in a town of our size. And this was just one small way to try and lead by example. That's something else that I firmly believe in. And I think if we can focus on the positive, we'll come back stronger, and we'll rebound from this pandemic a lot stronger as a community.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea to create that kind of a Facebook group, because I think it's one way to really pull people together.
Mhm.
I'm going to go off script for 1 second and ask you both to say this in one word, one or two words. When we got the news, which I think was like on March 11th or 12th, that the state was going to go on lockdown or shutdown or whatever we want to call it, what was the first thought that went into your head? I'll start with you, Councilwoman, and then Supervisor Mahan, maybe you could add.
I don't know how to put that into one word.
One sentence will work.
Okay. I mean, I think my first thought was being worried about others because, I have family members that are in the age range of people that are in the vulnerable population, and I wanted to know what I could do to make a difference and help others during this time.
Okay. And Supervisor.
I think it would, the key word for me was, first thing in my mind was, how do I protect our town? How do I protect our people in our town? That was my main thought, to activate all of our emergency people, and let's just get moving.
So another one word, and this one because I shared it in advance. Supervisor, I'll start with you. What's the new normal look? What's your vision of the new normal?
I think our new normal is being more prepared. We have to be more prepared, and I think that we're going to adjust to what that is. We are doing that already. I think a lot of what we're seeing now is going to remain as part of the new normal. And I think people are going to be more appreciative of things going through this crisis. This affects everybody, regardless of age or culture or educational level, or it just doesn't matter. It just does what it wants to do. This virus is very, very difficult, but we've learned that we need to keep learning and be more and more prepared, because this could happen again anytime.
Yeah.
I know that wasn't one word, sorry.
That's okay. Where one word can be a very long word. What about you, Councilwoman? What does the new normal look like?
I think at first it's going to be a little bit surreal for everyone because I think there's going to be things that everyone will have to adapt to. When businesses start reopening and you have social distancing still in place, sporting events, concerts, especially from my perspective, things that the younger generations like to do and go out and hiking, everything. I mean, there's going to be different ways to do the things that we were previously accustomed to, and I think that'll take some time to adapt. But I also think, on the other hand of that, the new normal is going to include some aspect of preparedness and being solution oriented. I think people will be in a better position to combat something like this if it came up in the future. I think people will start to rally together. I hope at least people will rally together and pool their resources so that if this does happen again, we can be in a better position to fight and to keep our community intact. And I think everyone eventually adapts to a situation like this. It'll take some time and there will be uphill battles and there will be frustrations, But I think if we all remember what's important and our core values at the end of the day, we can overcome this.
Yeah. You know, with that in mind, I was thinking, I hope people are still baking bread in the new normal because it's something that it surprised me when I saw how popular that got.
Yes.
But I also think it's really like an amazing way to bring families together and then connect communities. I've been passing out sourdough starter because I have so much of it because it grows so quickly. So I think we're out of time. So I want to just thank you both again for joining us this evening. And I'm Himani Gupta Carlson. Our guests have been Colonie Town Supervisor Paula Mahan and Councilwoman Melissa Jeffries Von Dolan. The Asian American Herald is a Facebook-based news media outlet dedicated to discussing topics and building community among Asian Americans in the Capital Region. Please send us your story ideas and look for the recording of this show on our Facebook page. Have a good evening and thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.